Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening.
Good evening, sir.
Good evening. Harinasi ma'am, are we is anybody presenting today or is it a different thing?
We'll ask them, sir. Kavita Computers, are you presenting any presentation to sir today? Kavita Computers?
So we don't have any presentation.
Okay, fine. Anybody else?
I think Hubli and Bellary, they have finished, I think, sir.
Yeah, Hubli is finished, and I think yeah, the other ones also have this thing. So I think we have Vaishali Computers was finished.
Yeah.
KTC Hubli has finished, and VVS Mysore I think has finished. Yeah. So
VVS Shahpur, VIS Mysore.
yeah, Shahapur, I think there was one presentation around digital in tourism.
Okay, sir.
I don't know if any other group is presenting or not. Any idea?
Anupama? Anupama Patel?
Yes, ma'am.
Any of your students are presenting
Because of
today?
No, ma'am.
Okay, fine.
Yes, sir. You can take some other class.
Sure. Okay, that's fine. That's okay. No problem. Okay, all right. So I thought of, is everybody joined in or more people joining? I can see some.
They are joining, you can continue, sir.
Okay,
Because they
fine.
have to join in
Okay,
time.
okay, sure, no problem. Yeah. So I was actually thinking of sharing something today, which a lot of, in fact, not lot, I think almost everybody in their presentation, they used, which is basically doing a SWOT analysis of the problem statement that was given and the case study that was given, and then identifying the strengths, weakness, and what should be the next steps from there. So I think everybody more or less did that SWOT analysis based on the questions given to them, and which was good to see. Various teams did in various ways while presenting. So I also thought that this is a very important component of any presentation that we make, or any business case study, or even in the interviews, or even any kind of when you are working in an organization, there also in various teams we need to be doing this SWOT and presenting things, right? So I thought I'll take some session today on SWOT, wherein we can see that how you can even make your SWOT better, how you can think SWOT in a much more innovative manner. For example, when you identify the strengths and the weakness, how do you actually put it in action? What is it that you will be doing which makes it a much more systematic process, like in a 1 2 3 4 5, right? So because obviously just by doing a SWOT, one shouldn't stop. One should also think of how do I implement that, right? And it could be for anything. It could be for the various case studies or business things that you are solving. It could be even for your own individual SWOT analysis also, all of us individually as well. If we are able to do a SWOT, we know what are our strengths, and then accordingly we can improve and map with what opportunities are available, right? So that also helps as an individual career growth. Second, even if you're working in a big team, or if you are managing a group of people, there also you need to understand what's the strength of your team, what's the strength, what is the not so strength or the weakness or the opportunities where you can kind of convert. So basically SWOT helps you with multiple aspects of things. It's not only about the case study presentation, etc. Right. So given that, I'll play some videos, right, where the instructor is going to give you examples, and then you will see that how a simple SWOT model can be taught in a different way, and taking those same points implemented in our own careers or in our lives, right? I think that's something which will be helpful, because because SWOT is something which we'll use across every time. So hence I picked up this topic today. So let's share the screen and I will present. And of course, we will have Q&A over the chat, or you can ask questions. Anything is fine, just we have always been doing. So I think that's fine. But let's listen to this. So let me share my screen. Is my screen visible now?
Yes, sir.
Okay, sure. Sure. So here we will talk about improving your business with SWOT. What is SWOT? Performing the analysis. How will you typically perform the analysis, right? And once you perform the analysis, how do you convert those weaknesses into your strength? How do you use those opportunities? And then there are some few use cases also, how to facilitate and how to do it for your personal growth, etc. and stuff, right? So we'll hear all of this. I see some chat. Srishti Infotech has mentioned, hello sir, out of 16, 4 teams have presented in the previous session. Other 2 teams have prepared the resignment and sudden visual. Okay. Sure, no, Srishti Infotech, so today nobody else is presenting. So whenever in the next classes, you are ready, out of the 16, only 4 teams have presented. So which obviously means there are 12 teams pending, right? So as and when you are ready, you can present it. Today nobody else is presenting. Today we are looking at a different class topic. Okay, so let me now play the video.
Business planning and effective
Sorry, is the sound visible?
execution. You need to have a
Sound audible? Sorry, not
It
visible.
is audible, sir.
Okay, yeah. Okay.
business model that aligns competitive
I'll play from the beginning.
success in business is driven largely by the combination of sound business planning and effective execution. You need to have a business model that aligns competitive assets to insatiable markets while keeping an ever-vigilant lookout for outside threats and operational risks. When the unexpected strikes, your business or career could suddenly come to a standstill, or worse, face an existential threat from which it might never recover.
Sorry, some internet issues, I guess. Okay, just give me a moment. Let me just reboot this one more time.
Chances are that if
All right, let me share my screen now again. Okay.
you're watching this course, you've already heard of and have probably participated in a SWOT workshop or event at least once in your career, whether you knew it or not. A SWOT analysis is a management tool that enables a leadership team to manage change. The name SWOT is an acronym of 4 key areas of a business, product, or operation under a management team's focus, specifically its strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. So where did SWOT come from? Albert Humphrey is largely credited with the origins of SWOT while leading a research team at Stanford University during the 1960s and 1970s. Humphrey sought to understand why corporate planning would often fail. Humphrey's research initially identified that what is good in the present is satisfactory, good in the future is an opportunity, bad in the present is a fault, and bad in the future is a threat. He developed a team action model addressing each of these four areas as change management practices.
So important to note that, even when you worked on your presentations, like a lot of the case studies, if you had done your SWOT, then you would know it basically into two categories: what is good and what is bad. And then under good, you have a satisfactory in the present. Under future, you have an opportunity, which is good. So, for example, a lot of the teams, they presented on the digital tourism. So what's good and what's satisfactory in the present, and how could digital tourism as an opportunity be good in the future? So
Soumyajit, I'm barging in. Hello.
Yeah.
Soumyajit, I'm barging in. Soumyajit, it seems that people are not giving you presentation. It seems I came to know.
Yes, I think a lot of centers they did, a lot of centers they haven't.
Soumyajit, you don't have to take a pressure on that. See, the only thing what you have to do is whoever is not given, just mark them 0.
Right.
See, you're not supposed to request. They know it that they are supposed to give presentation. If they are not giving, just mark them 0. And I would request when you're marking the center, Soumyajit, also see that the maximum representation is there. Because what I noticed is there are some centers, there are 1 or 2 students only giving, and the remaining students are having a fine time. So those centers, you rate them badly.
Right.
I think it will be difficult. Maybe Harinakshi will help you. You will make out, like, for example, there are some top centers, no, they only put 2 to 3 students in the front, and every time those 2 3 students are only presenting. We want the whole center to be part of the presentation. Good, bad, ugly, we don't care, but let them learn.
Sure.
But many of them are taking it very, very intelligently. They are avoiding this. Now, this is going to harm them only, Soumyajit.
Yeah.
So I think this is what was observation. But anyway, now you don't have to request them. I think tomorrow again you are coming. So just finish off. That's all as far as this month is concerned. And send your evaluation. Mark them 0. Sorry, I barged in, Soumyajit.
No problem. No problem. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah. Sorry. So going back to this, so lot of times, you would have seen the presentations where a lot of teams presented on digital tourism future. So what in the present, what's good, and in the future, where is the opportunity to be good, right? So so similarly, now if you listen about SWOT analysis, what is good, bad, and what's the threat, etc., you will be able to map that, probably we didn't have this SWOT analysis class that point in time, but now that you are listening to this, you will be able to remember that a lot of things which you have already done as a part of the analysis are actually based on this model. So hence, if you go back and look into your presentations, now you'll be able to map this better. And that's what, I wanted to kind of let everybody know. So let me play the video.
Additional researchers in 1964 and 1965 proposed similar frameworks, but changed the false characteristic to weaknesses. And since that time, the name SWOT has largely prevailed. So how is SWOT used? Typical applications of SWOT analyses include product or competitor evaluation, go-to-market strategies, product or service requirements planning, and even personal development planning. A facilitated SWOT analysis asks team leaders to identify the good and bad in current operations that can be controlled and considered internal to the business, strengths and weaknesses. It also asks team leaders to identify the good and bad in future operating environments that are outside the control of the business and are considered external, opportunities and threats. Facilitation is a key skill in effective application of a SWOT analysis. It's best to prepare questions in advance that address each of the 4 analysis areas and then administer them to participants in a combination of one-on-one and group sessions. A SWOT analysis can provide a framework for reviewing the strategy, position, and direction of a company, product, or even an individual's career. When facilitated effectively and governed by prioritized success metrics, a SWOT analysis can be a key link in a strategic planning chain that leads to positive actions. We all like to put ourselves in the best light possible. Strengths are the most comfortable part of a SWOT analysis because we're being given the opportunity to complement ourselves and validate our worth. Psychologically, it's very appealing. In traditional SWOT capture sessions, we sometimes don't challenge ourselves as much as we should when creating a list of strengths. Without effective and ideally independent facilitation, we are likely to create random lists of strengths with equally weighted elements, representing variable impacts to the business. For example, one strength might be, our top product sells in the market with 30% margin, while another strength might be, our top salesperson looks great in a suit, not equivalent strengths. I want to give you an approach to discovering strengths as part of a SWOT analysis that is specific and aligned to your business or situation.
Very important. So when we are doing a strength analysis, it should not be random. It should be a strength which actually is going to be helpful for the business. So again, going back to the presentations, like the various teams and the topics, on which the teams made, there was a constant question and a discussion around what's going to be the business impact, or how, if you have identified a particular strength, it is actually going to make that impact in the business, right? So this is where this analysis comes in very handy and important. Is even if you are see, everybody can think that this is a strength, but are these strengths actually going to be impactful for the business? That's what you should consider. It's not about whether as a team I can do this, that's my strength, but is that strength going to be impactful for the business? That is important, right? So choosing that strength is very critical, which has a positive business impact, and that's what the author is going to talk about here as examples.
And considers basic ranking criteria for all SWOT analysis factors. When creating a list of strengths, you're looking at internal factors. You need to focus solely on benefits or advantages that are inherent to you, your teams, or your business. You should think about strengths that contribute measurable value or are directly connected to the creation of value. No matter what the object of your SWOT analysis is, your list of strengths should be unique to your organization or business and not easily replicated. Consider some of the following questions when thinking about your strengths. What are the things that we produce or do really well? What resources do we have that distinguish us in our market? What are the most important processes and skills that we bring in relation to our business? What unique knowledge and perspectives do we have that makes us stand out over our competitors? What
very, very critical examples. Everything that you have heard is something unique that will make your business stand out in terms of your competition. That's the strength we are talking about, not individual strength, but the business strengths.
What financial characteristics of our business are superior to our competitors? What customer relationships do we have that foster goodwill and brand loyalty?
And also, to add to it, when a business is doing the SWOT analysis, in all the examples which you saw, or sorry, what you heard right now, you can talk about strengths of each department. So maybe as an organization, my sales is very strong. Maybe as an organization, my operations is very strong, or my technology team is very strong. That is my advantage in the market. That I have a strong sales team, or maybe my product team is extremely strong and we are innovative as an organization, and hence that is our strength, right? So it's very important to map all of these also into the various departments that you have in your organization, because all departments together forms your business.
One problem with internal factors is that sometimes
somebody has to go on mute. All right. Somebody has to go on mute. I don't know who's unmuted.
Sometimes they can be viewed as both a strength and as a weakness. For example, sometimes a brand is considered a strength, But while a company's brand value might be the best in its industry, its brand image might be relatively poor. Having clear and focused definitions of each factor, such as brand value versus brand image instead of just brand, can help eliminate a generic
Somebody has to go on mute. Who's this? Thank you.
factor name appearing in multiple lists of a SWOT analysis. The more action or parametrically oriented the factor, the easier it will be to assess and evaluate. As much as finding strengths are a comfortable part of a SWOT analysis, finding weaknesses is one of the most uncomfortable internal examinations we can perform, whether as an individual or as part of an organization. It's not fun to find and expose vulnerabilities within oneself. We tend to be subjective. We try to soften our estimation of weak areas that are in our control, while being more direct in sharing opinions about things that may belong to someone else or another part of the business. Very few realize that weaknesses are a form of opportunity and future strengths and should be embraced and owned as willingly as strengths. I'd like to share some examples with you on approaches and ideas you can use to objectively identify weaknesses. Using these examples as templates, you may find weaknesses that have the potential to be transformed into strengths as part of a follow-up action plan to a SWOT analysis.
Yeah, very critical point to remember that, when we are describing our weaknesses as examples, the idea is not to identify the weakness and leave it there. The idea is to identify the weakness and actually convert it into a strength. So if you are doing your SWOT analysis right now, you identify your weaknesses and your strengths, and then maybe 2 years down the line, 3 years down the line, you do another SWOT analysis where you will see as a business, this weakness has now been converted into a strength, and that is important.
As with finding strengths, weaknesses are considered internal characteristics of a SWOT analysis and should be considered only after external factors have been identified. Weaknesses are inefficiencies or gaps in your makeup, execution, or performance that prevent you from achieving your goals. I want you to think about weaknesses as challenges or deficiencies that take away or block the value you and your teams create. Consider the following questions as guides when thinking about weaknesses. Where is significant or excessive spending taking place? What activities or operations are consuming excessive amounts of time? What manufacturing or supply resources are being excessively consumed or not easily replaced? What gaps exist in your skills or core competencies? What strategic goals are not being met? What tactical goals are not being met? What are the current problems with sales or profit margins? Where are the current problems with product or service defects? Are there any conflicts, problems, or difficulties within the organization? Are there any conflicts, problems, or difficulties with customers or suppliers? When setting out to discover and document weaknesses, it's important to be as objective as possible. Proper facilitation is a key element of creating a list that is both actionable and measurable. Don't simply pull together a hand-picked team and ask for opinions in a high-pressure setting. It's particularly useful to prepare questions regarding weaknesses in advance to minimize any reactive or emotional biases that affect the team's responses. As with finding strengths, be sure to be specific in your labeling and definitions of an individual weakness to avoid creating list entries that may also be labeled as strengths. In my experience, finding and leveraging weaknesses are some of the best resources an organization or individual can utilize, and often are overlooked gold nuggets from a SWOT analysis. When you objectively find weaknesses that you can act upon with clear metrics, you have the building blocks for powerful tools that enable new strengths and capture opportunities.
Most important point to remember, right? Now, a lot of times we feel that, like, if we identify weakness, like, our team is actually weak and our business is actually weak. But the idea of finding this weakness is actually converting them into your strength later. And that's more important. And this is exactly what the author also tells. If you should actually be happy if currently what is a weakness and you have identified, you know what measures to take to actually rectify and make it better. That's actually your strength and the biggest strength. And a lot of times we as human beings, we fail to do that because nobody wants to say, you know what, I have a weakness in this. But I think the first important battle to fight is when we realize that, like, what is our weakness, and we are okay to raise our hand and say, hey, you know what, I am not good at this. Our team is not good at this. Our organization is not good at this, but we have identified this. Now we will work towards making this better. I think that's the mindset one needs to have in doing this SWOT and analysis, and then taking things to the next level in the business. I think that's important. Just a key takeaway for everybody to keep in mind and remember. Let's see,
Discovering
we can do
opportunities is one of the two areas of a SWOT analysis that looks to external forces or resources that can create or amplify value. Unlike internal factors of strength and weaknesses that are based on individual or organizational experiences, external factors are often conclusions drawn from researching trends, data, and relationships, such as customers, markets, and suppliers. A best practice in SWOT analysis facilitation is to perform external analyses first and then focus on the internal analyses. External analysis focuses on the environment in which the individual or organization operates. Environmental factors for most SWOT analyses may include looking at customers, competitors, technology trends, economic constraints, regulatory frameworks, market uncertainties, supply chains, sales or service partners. There's never a guarantee that an opportunity will act independently to help you or your organization. Opportunities represent possibilities. It's through the action and application of strengths and the mitigation or conversion of weaknesses that one can capture an opportunity, creating a new channel for delivering value. When discovering and listing opportunities as part of a SWOT analysis, it's important to consider how an opportunity aligns to strengths or avoids weaknesses. Otherwise, opportunities may be nothing more than wishful thinking. I'd like to share with you some thoughts and ideas about questions you might consider for discovering, documenting, and ranking opportunities when planning a SWOT analysis event. Whether for individual or organizational improvements, opportunities are sought to drive benefits, relationships, and, of course, growth. Opportunities help us reach our goals, or in difficult times, help us pivot to new goals that can make the difference in surviving and thriving in a new normal. Consider the following questions as examples to help your SWOT team investigate and discover opportunities when planning a SWOT analysis. Are there any other channels in our market or industry that we can explore for new sales or relationships? Are there technologies that can help us do work that needs doing and more effectively to let us focus more on what we do best? Are there unmet needs that our products, services, or skills that we can fill in our market or in other markets? Are there improvements we can make in our people and ourselves? Are there improvements we can make in our processes and operations? Are there improvements we can make to our strategies and competitive intelligence? It's important to keep in mind that external influences are more often the drivers of opportunities than internal influences. Without a disciplined approach, facilitating a group to identify external influences, both opportunities and threats, can be difficult to control and limited by the personalities or biases among SWOT team members. One structured and more formal method to assess external influences is called the PEST, or sometimes PESTLE method. 6 dimensions of external influences, such as political, economic, and technology factors.
Very important thing to keep in mind, right? A lot of the business is actually dependent on the current political environment, the economic realities, the recession or the economy being in a good stage, the technology advancement that a country may actually have, which will aid the business. Am I getting the right human capital? That is like, can I get people who understand technology into my workforce, and then that becomes my opportunity, right? So right now, let's say, for example, even in in India, and then we'll take an example of India, like semiconductor as an industry, right? The government is saying that by 2027 and 2030, right, India will probably become the hub of semiconductor production. And then with this semiconductor, then there'll be a lot of other impact on the various industries, maybe the automotive industries, or maybe the mobile industry, etc., etc. Now this is 2023. The projection is an opportunity for 2030. But why is government making that projection? Why does government feel that there is a possibility of India becoming one of the leading players in semiconductor? That's the opportunity part of it, right? And this opportunity is because government realizes that we are strong in technology. We have a lot of human capital and human resources who are studying technology right now, who would be in the future workforce, correct? We have stable political environment. So all these things for any organization, if they consider, is going to be an opportunity for them to make that impact. And that's why the government is projecting that. So hence it's a real-time example of how this PEST method can be applied when you are doing an analysis, right? I just thought I'll share that with you. So let's listen to the video again.
To a business, market, or even an individual. Application of PEST or PESTLE methods can add significant value to a SWOT analysis. We'll cover this in more detail when we discuss the topic of discovering threats. Seeking out and finding threats. It's the sort of thing expected only of the paranoid, because obviously everyone must be out to get them. In business, you're perfectly safe. It's not you everyone's out to get. It's only your customers, your suppliers, and every relationship you depend on that sustains your existence. Your competitors would be thrilled if you just stayed put and not worried about a thing. For the most part, threats are external forces, and as part of a SWOT analysis, need to be considered before looking at internal factors. Threats, as well as opportunities, emanate from a company's environment. The same is true for an organization or even an individual. Assessments of environmental influences require more than just the experiences of a team. It requires a facilitated framework of questions and follow-up to find answers that ultimately identify the most likely forces that will impact your situation. I'd like to share with you several methods of external analyses that will help you create questions to identify threats that improve the effectiveness of your SWOT analysis and your team's contributions. I'd also like to share some example questions that you can use as a guide when preparing your SWOT team to discover potential threats. External analysis methods examine factors that have macro-level impacts. The PEST or PESTLE methods look at the following external factors: political factors, current and future laws, government stability, issues and regulations that can impact business or strategic operations now or in the future, economic factors, inflation, stock markets, exchange and interest rates, taxes, customer buying confidence, and similar economic issues that need to be considered, social factors, changes in demographic and population lifestyles, education, buying trends, current events, media influences, and related advertising or publicity factors. Technological factors, innovations, new technologies, manufacturing and infrastructure, improvements and restrictions in global connection, licensing, research funding, all can have significant impacts.
So now you know what does PEST stand for. It's political, economic, social, and technology. That's the abbreviation for PEST. And all of these has impact on your threats and opportunities and how a business would typically perform given this analysis, right? So
Legal factors, upcoming legal enactments, or recent laws that could impact operations and trade. Environmental factors, local or global issues such as climate change that amplify or enable social and political factors.
So this environmental E, so now this is PESTLE. So political, economic, social, technological, legal, and environmental factors. Environmental factors are right now becoming very, very critical. Even 10 years back, it may not have been that prominent, but right now, this is an integral part of any business analysis that we are supposed to do. So hence, it started with PEST and then legal environment. So now this entire method is called PESTLE method of understanding your threats, and which ultimately could be considered in your analysis to to mitigate, to make your plan, which will help to prosper better or do your business better.
Another external analysis method is the Porter's 5 Forces framework. This analysis focuses on the immediate environment impacting a company or organization. The 5 forces are 5 main sources of competition, including the bargaining power of suppliers, the bargaining power of buyers, the threats posed by new entrants, the threats posed by substitutions to a product or service, and rivalry among existing competitors.
So I wouldn't go and play this video for long, because this can get a little bit of technical. But then typically this Porter's 5 forces talks about how, and it's very self-explanatory. If you see customer bargaining power, so if you have a more bargaining power, then you are more in control. A lot of economies, a lot of organizations, they have their monopoly. They have more bargaining power. So hence they are able to kind of dominate the industry. Threat of new entrants, a lot of startups, they can disrupt. So they are new entrants. Supplier bargaining power. So one is customer bargaining power, one is supplier bargaining powers. It's always demand and supply, right? And then internal competition in terms of within your organization, there are various teams who will kind of lead to this growth. So is sales better than my technology team, or is my human resources team better than my technology team? So those are kind of questions, right? And of course, threat of substitutes, what is relevant today may not be relevant tomorrow. So and hence, is the substitute, or am I working on some product which will be remaining for the next 50 years, right? So hence there is no immediate threat of substitutes as a part of my threat analysis, right? So that is Porter's 5 forces. You can read more, of course, by Google, etc. But then just wanted to let you know that the combination of PESTLE and Porter's 5 is good enough for your understanding of what could be your, how do you find your threats, and then how do you convert it back, right? So given this, we'll look at some actual use cases and see how this is being used, and how all of these are getting converted into opportunities, right? And how SWOT is also being used for your personal growth and your organizational growth. So let's listen to those.
There are plenty of insights, tips, and advice when it comes to compiling the 4 areas of information required for a SWOT analysis. However, one item that is sometimes overlooked is the actual facilitation of a SWOT process with a group of people. The most critical components of a standard SWOT analysis, the collected inputs that make up the 4 quadrants, are subjectively captured and derived from the experience of key individuals and stakeholders. These inputs, critical to the benefits of a SWOT analysis, are often subject to significant bias. The introspective nature of exposing internal characteristics, particularly weaknesses, can often place SWOT participants in vulnerable defensive postures if not handled with care and consideration. I'd like to share some suggestions for how to facilitate aspects of a SWOT analysis that minimize subjective bias, particularly in the early stages of a SWOT process where questions are drawn up and inputs are collected. A common method for collecting inputs during a SWOT process, usually in a workshop setting, is to use a brainstorming approach. This is understandable, as on the surface, it seems easy to understand and to implement. However, brainstorming is a method that people can mistakenly treat as an ad hoc process. It is not. Planning and preparation are essential for any brainstorming event. Goals and success criteria must be established and communicated to the participants well ahead of any live session or event. Brainstorming, and for that matter, any element of a SWOT process, should be led by an objective or, if possible, an outside facilitator, and not by a stakeholder or owner of the outcomes. Prior to facilitating a live working session with contributors to a SWOT workshop, an initial and comprehensive list of questions for each quadrant of a SWOT analysis should be drafted, reviewed, and circulated to the workshop participants. There should be little surprise as to the questions that will be covered by the time the SWOT workshop is held. This will help minimize extremes in both pessimistic and optimistic biases that might otherwise affect the workshop results. The facilitator should always keep in mind that the purpose of the initial SWOT workshop is to collect insights and not to explore related causes, especially for negative insights. There's always a risk of woulda, coulda, shoulda thinking, contaminating thoughts and insights around weaknesses and threats. For some teams, a live workshop with planned questions known in advance can work well. For others, it might be more effective to assign questions to individuals and have them submit answers back to the facilitator via email prior to an agreed deadline. The facilitator's job is to help the team develop the lists and not try to find solutions to problems of the past. Later on, when the lists are used to develop strategies for growth and risk mitigation, can participants consider addressing specific problems that have been selected and prioritized to help reach agreed goals?
So the most important part here is to when some facilitator is actually trying to put in this use case of SWOT analysis, it is important to make the teams realize that what is your inner strength, what is the real strength that needs to come out, or what is the opportunity. So a big picture thinking and a business impact is important. It is not about finding 10 different things and arriving at a solution. So during the analysis, the intent is not to find the solution, but the intent is to identify the four brackets, and then later debate on it further, work as a group to see what could be the solutioning part of it. So a lot of times what happens is people, when they do a SWOT analysis, they start solutioning from day one itself. That's not the intent. The intent is to first identify and understand what are all those four buckets, and then think of what the solutioning would be. And that's what the author is kind of trying to say. So even in your case, when you're working on on a project, I think it, more than coming to a solutioning from day one, you should first understand the various parameters and then think of a solutioning at a much more later. So don't make the mistake of thinking of a solutioning from day one itself, right? So let's see how SWOT can be used.
I've taught and mentored many students and colleagues in my careers. At some point, questions of personal growth and career development usually arise, to which I offer two rules that have served me well for over 30 years. The first rule is fairly direct. No one has your best interest at heart more than you. Neither your boss, nor your company, nor your friends, or anyone else is going to be looking out for you all of the time as a first priority. Ultimately, you and you alone are responsible for your own success. The second rule was given to me by one of the best managers I've ever had. He was my manager for only 1 year during the dot-com era, but his coaching has continually steered me to repeated successes throughout my careers. One night, over dinner in an Italian restaurant in Palo Alto, California, my then manager shared with me a family business proverb that had been handed down through his ancestral line for over 2,000 years, all the way back to the time of pharaohs in the sands of Egypt. The proverb was very simple. In business, your loyalty is to the opportunity. The essence of these rules, self-reliance and situational awareness, makes for a powerful compass with which to navigate any life journey. In many regards, these two rules are at the heart of successful career and personal management. Upon reflection, I realized I had been given, and since adopted a method for leveraging personal SWOT analysis as a sustainable practice. I'd like to share some thoughts as to why application of SWOT analysis is beneficial for personal growth and not just for organizations. The application of SWOT methods for internal exploration, seeking out strengths and weaknesses, is perhaps one of the most challenging and brutally honest exercises a person can take in evaluating their current and future states. Most people are used to being judged by others, especially in professional settings. Many of us work towards metrics and goals that are assigned to us by others that we place in authority over our day-to-day journeys, which is in effect a surrendering of control of our own potential. Similarly, the personal application of SWOT methods for external exploration is something that might be discouraged, even if indirectly, in professional settings. Our goals tend to be linked to the goals of an organization or an employer, since if they don't succeed, presumably we fail as well, as long as we're giving an organization control over our goals and objectives.
So I'll pause for a moment. Again, a very, very important aspect, right? So if you have heard the author talk about, most of the time, we as individuals, we are probably apprehensive or we are probably scared in thinking or identifying, our weaknesses, because nobody wants to say, I am not good at it. Also, a lot of times we feel that something is our strength, but they may not be the actual strengths, because that's not how the world kind of perceives it, right? Or the other way around is they may actually be your strength, but the world doesn't perceive it. So there are multiple ways in which we as individuals are not able to map, because typically when we work in an organization, the organization has a particular goal. We are supposed to work towards that goal and drive towards that goal. But a good organization, any good organization that you work, they will always map the two things together. While looking at an organization goal and growth is very, very, very important, at the same time, as an individual's personal goal, how you are mapped with that organization's goal is critical as well. Because an organization may have a very ambitious goal, but if you as an individual are not able to recognize your strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities, then how will you map it back to the organization, right? So any good organization or any progressive organization, they would always map these things together, and that's important. So hence, doing sometimes maybe whenever, and this is for all the entire group over here, do your own SWOT analysis some point in time. Forget that whether you have worked in a group or worked on a project together, do your own SWOT analysis and then see, as a group, if you come together, what is the strength and opportunities and threats and weaknesses you are able to kind of do, and then start doing your the analysis for the projects or the case studies or the presentations, etc., which is more from the business point of view, right? So it's very important to do your own SWOT analysis, because this will help you to kind of reach and grow in your personal career, and hence this is very important. So let's listen to the last part of the video.
When you employ all aspects of a personal SWOT, discovery and strategic planning, you're taking control of your own metrics and goals. You're forcing yourself to take a hard, honest look at your strengths and weaknesses, and in the process, become more self-aware. You're also giving yourself permission to succeed, and ultimately, you're removing any excuse for not taking responsibility for your own outcomes. Feedback is going to be unfiltered, which, while potentially raw and harsh, is going to help you figure out and prioritize exactly what actions are best suited for you. Repeatedly engaging in a personal SWOT process is going to help you stay on track, because you're always going to have highly focused visibility into where you are and where you need to be, especially as things change unexpectedly. Used consistently, a personal SWOT analysis can really help you keep your development and growth focused, flexible, and on track.
Okay, and we'll stop here, right? Now, let's open this up for any questions that you have. Any questions?
I have a question, sir.
Yeah.
So it's about writing a resume.
Okay.
So how to address career gaps?
Sorry, how to address
Career gaps in the resumes.
career gaps in the resumes? Okay. So, gone are those days where people will question why there is a gap. There used to be a time where these kind of questions were asked. Of course, there are some organizations which may still ask, etc. But then first things first, you should be honest as to why there has been a gap. And there are multiple reasons why there could be a gap, right? So being very, very clear and honest about saying that, this is the reason why there is a gap is absolutely fine. Because if I'm a hiring manager, I would love that honesty. Now, there could be gaps for various reasons. Maybe there was a gap because you are doing your higher education. Maybe there was a gap because probably at that point in time there was an economic situation, and because of which you may not have lost your previous job, and then before the next job there was a gap. There could be, or maybe you would have taken a sabbatical. You worked for 15 years, you wanted a 1 year break to kind of do something, and then so there could be multiple such reasons of career break, and it is absolutely fine to have a career break. That's the most important thing one should understand. And one should be confident in saying this to the organizations or the HR or the person who is kind of interviewing you, because there is nothing to hide as to why there has been a career break, because there are legitimate reasons why career break can happen. And now you are coming back because you have the skills, because you would want to kind of get that job opportunities, and every good organization will support this. Nobody will kind of question this, right? So it depends on org to org as well. But across the industry, every organization will actually support this because they want the right people to kind of come through. So in your resume, it is absolutely fine to say that there has been a gap and there is a reason why there has been a gap. Absolutely fine to say. More questions? Any other teams, people, individuals? Yeah, go ahead.
Sir, how to make cover letters?
How to make cover letters? So cover letters should be something very simple. Cover letters should just talk about your overall experience in a very short and easy way. Bring out what you are good at, and also what value you can add if you are getting this job and in this organization, right? That's it. That is all. And then honestly, in today's world, again, not everybody wants to look at a cover letter because nobody has a time to, right? They will have 40 minutes or 30 minutes to talk to you in an interview, and then they will understand what skills you bring through. That is good enough. But still people do cover letters and it is okay, but then keeping it as simple as possible is good, right? Also, with this lot of the generative AI that we are talking about, the chat GPTs of the world, right? You can always look for examples as to what could be a good cover letter, or what could be a good way to kind of represent what you're talking about. Try out some of those examples. You will probably get some good ideas as well. Okay. So I think we are on time today. Harinakshi, we'll end the session. So in the next sessions, let's see if the teams have something to present, or we'll pick up some other topics and then we'll talk about it.
Yes, sir. What about tomorrow's class, sir?
Yeah. So I will message you on the timings.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. All right.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah,
Thank you, sir.
I have noted that Kavita Computers mentioned that they wanted to kind of do some presentation. I don't know about the others, but then if some teams are presenting tomorrow, it will be fine. Otherwise, we'll take up some topic. Yeah.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you all.
Yes, sir.